Well, welcome back to Oliver's Mount in Scarborough. We have got another hour of stunning action coming up with some of the biggest names in road racing. And if you didn't see the first show, take a look at this.
The message is watch Jamie Coward as they burst away towards me for the very first time. Here comes Dean Harrison to take the checkered flag. Oh, ride it down. Oh my goodness. Johnston who pulls the wheel in the air.
That's part one of the Barry Sheene Classic. Now, this event would have done Barry proud. He'd have been very, very pleased about the people still coming along here. Now, one man that used to battle with him all the way around here and the crowds would go absolutely mad was Mick Grant. Well, Mick, isn't it lovely to be back out on these iconic machines? And I'm going to tell you my story, because I obviously came from the south and I was big mates with Barry, and there would be the northern crowd up here, the Yorkshire lads, obviously following you. And it was nearly like kind of mods and rockers, really. You were either in the Grant camp or the Sheene camp, and the sort of red Suzuki colours in one camp, the green Kawasaki in the other. Wonderful atmosphere.
Yes, and unbelievable crowds, and yeah, they were just great days, and we had lots of good races around here. Yeah.
And when you look back at the names of the people that have been here, you know, like your Hayewoods and your Jarno Sarns and your Jeff Dukes and your Agostinis.
The first time I came here, Jeff Duke was riding.
Right.
And then later on, Mike Hale was on the Mondial.
Congratulations, I know you're very much involved with putting this all together, along with Eddie Roberts and Sean and all the people there. It must be a lovely sight for you, bombing around here on a bike that you used to ride back in the day, seeing all the crowds here.
Well, it is, considering that 2 weeks ago we weren't even sure we'd run.
Yeah.
And then we didn't know whether we were going to run with spectators or without spectators.
Right.
And luckily we haven't made the right decisions.
Yeah.
And everybody's very happy to be back. Everybody.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to you, your team, the volunteers, everyone that I know has worked so hard to get it all back and running, because I've had an absolute ball. Thank you. Oh, we're not allowed to. Coming up, more great racing, including twins, GP350s, classic superbikes, and a great parade that I'm looking forward to. But now it's time for the twins. Over to our commentator, Dave Moore.
Quick recap of the earlier Super Twins race. One to forget for Ian Locker. A first lap retirement, but one that Jamie Coward will remember. So too Jim Hind, but it was Jamie Coward who took the spoils. Bikes making their way into position. Jim Hind on bike 18, bike 11, Dom Herbertson. The man to watch though is the current Super Twin King, you could say, Jamie Coward on bike 36. This is how they line up. Coward, Herbertson, Locker on row 1. Hind, Ingham and Vickers on row 2. Purslow, Hardesty, Tillotson. Then it's Pringle, Rees and Hewson. Waring, Boast and Taylor. And then on row number 6, Jackson, Graves and Petrie. Once again, the odd gap here or there for non-starters. Ian Locker will hope to be a finisher this time as they charge down to Mere for the very first time. No issues for Jim Hind this time, but it's Coward who takes the whole shot. It looks like Herbertson might have just gone up the inside of Locker, but Locker on the pattern has the power to charge up the hill and reclaim second place, if he lost it momentarily, that is. But it is Jamie Coward that's once again leading them in the Super Twins around Oliver's Mount. Basically, Kawasaki versus Patton. Straight line speed of the Patton. Really useful at places like Ulster, etc. Maybe a little bit of a disadvantage on a tight and twisty circuit such as Oliver's Mount. It does have the back straight and also this little run down to Drury's in which to exploit that power. However, not for long. Herbertson still hassling Ian Locker. The only way he'll really make a move is on the brakes, on the turns. He certainly would do well to go past him. And here comes Herbertson Up the inside, makes his move. Nice move from Dominic Herbertson. And just like race leader Jamie Coward on a Kawasaki 650. Oh, Coward from Herbertson from Locker with Hind in 4th place. So it's 2 Kawasaki's leading 2 Pattons. Coward extending his advantage out in front. Oh, Jim Hind. Certainly looking at Ian Locker. Are we about to see Jim Hind appear ahead of Ian Locker at Mere? 31, Brad Vickers in 5th place. Mark Purslow is also there. Michael Rees, Keith Pringle, Andrew Jackson and Dave Hewson all looking for top 10 finishes. Well, this is Locker and there is Jim Hind. So the master and the apprentice, you could say. David Coward in the zone and looks to be in the winning zone yet again. The between class has been his this weekend and it looks as if it will end up that way. So Ian Locker, no one is more experienced here this weekend than Ian Locker. In fact, he'd even qualify for a parade lap, wouldn't he? Dom Herbertson still in the picture, as to Jim Hind and Ian Locker. Big gap back to Brad Vickers in 5th place. 33 is Gary Graves. Number 7 just behind him, Justin Waring on the KTM Moto3 machine. Jim Hind certainly enjoying his weekend at Oliver's Mount. Well, Ian Locker, a faller in the earlier Twins race. This time he's had to, looks like he's had to settle for 4th place behind Jim Hind. Here's the man in 5th, Brad Vickers. Jamie Coward just hitting all his braking points. Another little glance around just to see that there's no one behind him. They really are all spaced out now. Ian Locker still to go under 2 minutes in this race. Certainly Coward, Herbertson and Jim Hind have. Ian Locker yet to break the 2-minute mark as Jamie Coward comes up on back markers. But Jamie Coward sees the last lap flag. Just over 2 more miles to go. And you know that he will make it. Very experienced rider. A great 2019 for Jamie Coward. Picking up where he left off. Picking off back markers. That was Gary Broughton and Brian Fwidge, but he's just passed, he's just lapped. Ian Locker into Drury's, no sign of Jim Hind. Ahead of him, also being lapped, Jimmy Rothery. So Jamie Coward then on his way to another checkered flag. This is Jeffrey's Jumps. Watch those forks work. Boom, front wheel comes down. Again, as he slows for farm bends. Dominic Herbertson will take 2nd place as long as he has no issues with the 2 slower riders in front of him. But here comes Jamie Coward, another victory in the Super Twin class. Superb. Dominic Herbertson in 2nd. Jim Hind closing the gap down but having to settle for 3rd. Ian Locker in 4th. Brad Vickers 5th. Mark Purslow in 6th. But no one could touch Jamie Coward on a Super Twin this weekend.
Join us after the break for more action here from Oliver's Mount at the Barry Sheen Classic. Welcome back to Scarborough. Now, coming up is the parade, and it's full of lovely old motorcycles from the past that have won races around here at Scarborough, and lots of very famous old riders, and I'll be one of them. That's why I'm dressed in my leathers. Now, I am one of the lucky ones because I actually get to ride the Barry Sheene bike. This is the number 7 machine that Barry rode here his last race, or his last year of racing, particularly here at Scarborough, and he retired at the end of 1984, was this bike, and he won the Gold Cup with it. I was in the race, and I think I finished 3rd, something like that. It is a lovely looking machine. It's very, very light. It won't be massively powerful. It's probably around about 150, something, 160 brake horsepower, something like that, but it is the last of what I call the proper RG 500s, and it is the bike that the boss rode here in 1984. You would have watched him race around here, I'm sure, would you not?
Yeah, only met him once or twice. I know he was a great mate of yours, but, you know, whenever I met him, when he was talking, I was hanging off every word he said, and, you know, what a you know, a legend the man was.
I'm looking forward to the sound. Bit of a run round. I'll be a bit rusty around here, but a real treat for me, and of course to the spectators that get to hear the very bike that won the Gold Cup in 1984 with Mr. Barry Sheene on it.
All manner of machineries on display this weekend, ridden by some modern greats alongside the heroes of yesteryear.
Well, thanks to Steve Wheatman for letting me ride this bike, the bike that Barry rode last time here in 1984, the Sheene Machine.
Barry Sheene, what an incredible fella. World champion, 1976 and 1977. One of my heroes.
Great to be riding around Scarborough on the bike that Barry Sheene rode here last in 1984. Slightly tricky conditions, a bit damp for this bike that's worth so much money.
Is the big one. It's the 8-lap Barry Sheene Trophy race. The man in pole position, Dean Harrison, must start as favourite. He's won every race so far. Alongside him on the front row, he's joined by David Bell and John Dieterman. Then on row 2, Dan Ingham, Jim Hind and Tom Whedon. Row 3, Rhys Hardesty, Sam Johnson and Guy Martin. Row 4, Dave Hewson, Adrian Harrison, Peter Boast. Then on to row 5, Brad Vickers, Andy Saylor and Richard Charlton. Row 6 is Adam Child, Chris Moore and Rad Hughes. Watch the lights go on and watch the lights go off, and then we shall be racing. A couple of gaps, unfortunately, on the grid, it seems. A couple of non-starters. But there we are, engaged gear. Watch the lights. Lights go out and away we go. The charge down to mere hairpin. The tight and twisting Oliver's Mount circuit sorting them out. It's Harrison who leads. He's got the whole shot. Bell just behind him. Dieterman on the Ducatis in 3rd. Everyone safely around him would seem. No casualties this time. So we're riding with Jim Hind, the newcomer to the Oliver's Mount circuit this weekend. His first taste of Scarborough. He's having a good time so far as they filter their way onto the back straight. It's Harrison still leading, Bell in 2nd, Dieterman in 3rd. Peter Boast looks to be back in around 7th position. We'll know shortly soon when the names come up on the leaderboard. But they're sorting themselves out as they come into Drury's. Harrison from Bell, little gap now to Dieterman. 35, Dan Ingham in 4th place. Again, those wet patches refusing to go away at Drury's. Oh, David Bell. A little bit of style, a little bit of slide in. Oh my goodness, Dieterman holds on to third place. He's certainly in a battle with Dan Ingham. Here we go, as seen from Jim Hine, the Ducati pulling a little wheelie there. As Dieterman hooks it up. Again, Bell, the biggest slider so far we've seen today at Oliver's Mount. Just can't make his way past Dean Harrison. Still no change in the top three into Mount Side, but David Bell certainly riding with a smile on his face. He's certainly laying down some rubber from the rear of his machine. Leisurely ride for Sam Johnson. In fact, a ride no more, as he calls it quits. Fortunate for Sam. Dean Harrison, the king of Scarborough. Still being followed by David Bell. The gap at the end of the first lap was just over a second, and it's extending all the time. The spectacular Jeffries jumps, named after David Jeffries. That was Andy Saylor from Tom Whedon. Dean Harrison continues to pull away out front. This long-running, unbeaten run of his at Scarborough looks to be continuing here today. 107 was David Murphy, being followed by Harley Rushton. So we're riding with Peter Boast on his way into Palmer's. That's the way to do it. So Peter Boast moves up a position as he goes through Memorial. Dan Ingham refusing to let go of John Dieterman, so third place still very much up for grabs. It would seem like Dean Harrison has one hand on the Barry Sheene trophy. It will take something catastrophic for Dean Harrison to throw this one away. Number 12 was Adrian Harrison, brother of Dean. Behind them, 54, Peter Boast, just leading this little trio of riders through Drury's hairpin. Dave Houston at the back of them. Dean Harrison now around 5 seconds clear of the second place man, David Bell, who's on the 1000cc Kawasaki, the OW01 machine. Here is Peter Boast looking for a top 6 finish if he can grab one. He'll have his work cut out though. He's got 2 quick men on his tail. So Dean Harrison on the Greenall Racing's Kawasaki 750 ZXR. So Dean Harrison on his way to the checkered flag. Made it look easy when it's not. Certainly one of the greatest riders ever at Oliver's Mount. Another victory at the Barry Sheene Festival and another victory at Scarborough for Dean Harrison. Takes the number 1 place with David Bell in second. John Dieterman is in third. Dan Ingham 4th. Adrian Harrison keeping it in the family in 5th with Tom Whedon 6th.
Dino, you kind of made that look easy, but I bet the conditions weren't. Absolutely, it looked quite dreadful.
It was full Dunlop dries on there, and the conditions were just getting a little bit between. To be honest, you could tell really on the diesel race with being in a classic bike, the rear wants to slide around. But no, it was definitely tricky for everyone. But no, it's good fun. I really enjoy this meeting. It's nice to get out and finally see some people around the track enjoying a bit of bike racing for a change this year. So it's nice to be honest.
Join us after the break for more action here at Oliver's Mount. Welcome back to Scarborough. Coming up shortly is the Superbike race. But before that, I caught up with Gary Thompson, the clerk of the course at the Isle of Man and the man that seems to know everything about road racing in this country. Gary, what's your job here?
Well, this weekend, Steve, I'm the ACU steward, so basically here to oversee safety matters and any judicial matters that may arise from the meeting.
But a walk in the park to your normal job, which is clerk of the course at the Isle of Man TT races, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is a bit easier, I must admit it. It's nice to be back involved in it after the year we've had, but a bit easier than the clerk of the course job, I must admit.
Probably like me, you couldn't have imagined maybe January, February time what we were going to encounter this year, what we didn't encounter, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, from an ACU point of view, it's, well, as for the whole country, it's been very disappointing. You know, obviously we've had to do what we've got to do, obviously with the control measures in place, the safety precautions. The sport overall has restarted again. BSB's restarted. We've had a couple of club meetings, one at Mallory Park, one last weekend at Cadwell. Attended both went really, really well. The organisers are respecting all the COVID-19 measures that have been put in place.
OK, you're here at the Barry Sheene Classic. You're probably not old enough. Did you watch Barry Sheene race?
Oh, yeah, and yourself, Steve.
OK, so it's nice to have, it's a lovely atmosphere at this event.
It is. Oliver's Mount is a lovely place to come, actually, and and this event in particular, it's nice to see some of the old classic bikes out racing. Know some of the lads obviously from the Classic TT, they come across the Classic TT on a man, so and this year in particular, after what we've been through, it's just nice to get everybody back together, a nice event to basically restart Oliver's Mount ready for the Gold Cup.
Jim, the last time I saw you was the Classic TT. We had a fantastic ride on a 250. I think without the maybe the infringement of speed in through the pit stop, you probably could have won that race, but lovely to see you here at Scarborough.
Yeah, it's good to be here, riding the same bike as I did at the Classic when I see you, and yeah, it's good to be out. It's just drizzling a bit, but it should be all right. And
your first time here, you never seen the place until you got here? Have you come
Well, I've been coming up in my van and my push bike, getting a few laps in, but yeah, the first time racing here.
OK, and so far so good?
Yeah, so far so good.
That's the 250 behind you that you rode at the Classic?
Yeah, same bike.
And then you're riding the Pattern and a Super Sport?
Yeah, riding the Pattern, yeah, and then ZX 600, yeah.
All right, and is it kind of, it seems quite fast around here at times because it's quite narrow and things like that.
Yeah.
What about the jumps?
Yeah, I like them, yeah, they're all right, as long as you hit them straight and in a top gear, you're all right.
Yeah. Make sure it lands OK.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's lovely to see you here, and I'm sure you'll be coming for many more years in the future.
Hopefully, yeah.
Well, as you can see, I still hadn't had a chance to get my leathers off. But anyway, coming up very shortly is the Classic 250 and 350 race, so I'll hand you over to Dave Moore.
Here's a reminder of what happened in the earlier Classic AB and GP 350 race. Jim Hind, on his debut Scarborough weekend, looking for a hat-trick of wins on his Yamaha TZ250. Someone else making their debut, but an unfortunate one, was Dave Grigson. At the checkered flag, it was win number 3 for Jim Hind. Jim Hind then looking for the quadruple, looking for 4 wins. He starts in pole position alongside Rhys Hardesty and Chris Moore. Peter Boast, Harley Rushton and Andrew Jackson on row 2. Ian Stanford, Adam Child and Tony Flinton. Adrian Scaife, John Hannaford and Dave Grigson. Then Justin Waring, and it should have been Dom Herbertson. Unfortunately, some of those riders unable to take their positions on the starting grid for this race. The view looking up towards Mere Hairpin. You see there are already a few gaps. And 1 foot, certainly for Peter Boast to exploit, and he certainly does that as he slots into second place. But it is Jim Hind who leads, Boast in second, Chris Moore in third. Bringing up the rear, John Hannaford on another TZ250 rider. So it's Jim Hind on his Classic TZ250, setting the pace out in front. Peter Boast also pulling away from Chris Moore, however, unable to stay at the same kind of pace that Jim Hind is setting. Jim Hind into The hairpin. Out of Mounside he goes. They continue the drop down towards the start-finish. Dave Grigson, happy to see he's okay after his early misdemeanor. Being followed by John Hannaford. Well, Jim Hind had a little spill here at Mere in one of the other races. He certainly learnt from that. And Peter Post unable to shake off Chris Moore. Chris Moore still managing to stay with him. Jim Hind on his way then. This has been a lot more straightforward than the earlier races, but certainly not in the battle for second. Chris Moore still in pursuit of Peter Post. Jim Hind on the power once again, the sweet singing Yamaha. And where's this one going to end up? Peter Post on the Kawasaki 600 machine, hopping it into the Mere hairpin. Chris Moore on the Yamaha 250. Jim Hind with a very, very comfortable advantage. No matter what Chris Moore does, he just can't seem to find that little bit more that he needs to make his way past Peter Post. Jim Hind out of farm bends. He makes it 4 wins out of 4 in this class for the weekend. A fantastic display from this young rider. Second place does go to Peter Post, with Chris Moore in third. Almost 14 seconds the difference at the top between Jim Hind and Peter Post. Chris Moore in third, Ian Stanford fourth, Adrian Scaife fifth, with John Hannaford in sixth.
Next up is the Superbike race. Dean Harrison on the front row, and I think he's got to be favourite.
Let's remind ourselves of what happened in the earlier Bennett's Classic Superbike race. Dean Harrison third on the opening lap until he slotted past Dieterman into second place at Mounside. That meant he only had David Bell to make his way past, which he did again at Mounside. And Harrison went on to win yet again at Scarborough. Is there no stopping this man? So Harrison slots into pole position on the Green All Racing's Kawasaki. David Bell and John Dieterman on the front row again. Then it's Dan Ingham, Tom Whedon and Rhys Hardesty. Sam Johnson, Guy Martin and Dave Hewson. Unfortunately, some of these guys will not be taking up their position. Adrian Harrison, Peter Post, Brad Vickers, then Andy Saylor, Richard Charlton, Adam Child, with Brad Hughes, Colin Croft and Christian Didolo at the back. So certainly John Dieterman on the Ducati, not on the grid. As away we go. This time, oh, I was going to say, looked like Dean Harrison, but he's just content just to let David Bell take the whole shot. Looks like Guy Martin's missing as well this time. So David Bell setting the early pace, Dean Harrison in second place. Question is, will he do what he did earlier and take the lead going into Mounside? And the only reason I make that sound as if it's going to happen, like it's a foregone conclusion, every race, certainly in the last couple of years at Scarborough, that's what's happened. Dean Harrison may not have led, but he goes on to win. And then, of course, he starts turning on the style. So it's Bell from Harrison, Sam Johnson in a good third place, Dan Ingham's up there, so too Tom Whedon and Adrian Harrison. That is 1-2-2, that's David Suddas on the Yamaha. So this time around, Harrison just content to let David Bell do all the work out in front. of pursuit into Farm Bends. This is not an overtaking place. Watch him prove me wrong now. But certainly very difficult to make any move through Farm Bends, the newest part of this circuit. David Bell still leading from Dean Harrison. But Bell, I think, will have to keep it tight at Mountside, as he will everywhere else, of course. But certainly Mountside is where Harrison made his move in the earlier race. So onto the back straight they go. Dean Harrison on the Greenall Racing Kawasaki, still trying to chase down David Bell. The movement further back. Looks like it could be Dan Ingham and Tom Whedon, perhaps. Here is Bell with Harrison still in second place. Maybe I've been doing an injustice to David Bell. We'll soon find out. Sam Johnson still holding third place. Tom Whedon in fourth. Dan Ingham in fifth. And behind them, the likes of Harrison and Hewson and Saylor and Hughes. So they're going to complete another lap with David Bell's name in the leader's position. Dean Harrison in second. And Dean Harrison will have worked out in his mind exactly where he's going to make his move. Certainly there's no one with the experience of Oliver's Mount like Dean Harrison has. Oh, it's mere hairpin. It's the hairpin. First turn. Harrison makes his move. Can David Bell retaliate? No, just has to slot in behind Harrison. So this is the moment again. Sees the little gap, the little spurt of power just to carry him through, then grabbing that brake lever and then back on the power again. Wonderful stuff from Dean Harrison. Normal service has been resumed as far as Dean Harrison is concerned. Starts to drop down the hillside. David Bell looks as if he'll have to settle for second place. The question is, though, who's going to take third? Sam Johnson, Dan Ingham or Tom Whedon? That is certainly up for grabs. A three-way fight for the final position on the podium, it would appear. Here comes Harrison. This should be Bell, indeed it is. Oh, spectacular. But Dean Harrison crossing the line again with a very comfortable advantage over the man in second place, David Bell. Oh, Ingham putting on the pressure, but Johnson just holding him off. Tom Whedon looking to pick up any pieces, if any, should come his way. A shake of the head from Ingham. He knows he's messed that up. These three will fight all the way. Dean Harrison with the fastest lap of the race, which is of no surprise, of course. Well, Whedon's in danger of just losing touch with the two men ahead of him. Ingham and Johnson. Oh, Johnson just a little bit wide around Drury's. Here comes Dean Harrison to start his last lap. This is, as I said earlier, it's going to go all the way. David Bell, he knows second place is his, so he can just enjoy himself on that big 1000cc Yam. Dean Harrison, not seen him really backing it into Mere like we have in the past. Into Drury's, just nice and neat. Harrison on his way toward the checkered flag, less than a mile or so to go. Back out from under the trees. Dave Hewson on the ZXR 750. David Bell has certainly been the most spectacular through Jeffries in this race. But here comes Dean Harrison. It will be the 88th win at Scarborough for this young man. And he certainly enjoyed himself. Another victory for Dean Harrison. 5 out of 5 this weekend at Oliver's Mount. Well, the gap to David Bell, just over 10 seconds. Sam Johnson holding off the attentions of Dan Ingham and Tom Wheaton for third, with Adrian Harrison keeping it in the family in 6th.
Join us after the break for more action here from Oliver's Mount at the Barry Sheen Classic. Well, welcome back to Scarborough. Now, one man that seemed to have the world at his feet was last year's winner at the Northwest 200 and the TT, Lee Johnson.
Has he held on to the #1 position? He has.
One of the stars here this weekend. Lee Johnson, lovely to see you here. I bet you're keen to get on a track, aren't you?
Yes, well, especially back on what we class as road race, and we've been back to British Championship, but yeah, it's always nice to get back to...
a friend of yours, I guess.
Back to proper road racing, yeah.
You must be so disappointed about 2020, just the fact that everything was looking great for the roads. I must admit, I was hugely disappointed when the Northwest was the first to go, and the TT and everything else like that. Must have thrown your world into turmoil.
Yeah, obviously, like every season, you go through the whole process of going testing and getting pre-season stuff done. And then obviously we got to that point, and then it just said, right, we're not... It's like putting all the hard work in, and then you never get any other award of getting to go racing. So yeah, it was very frustrating. But at the end of the day, everybody we know is safe and well and stuff, and hopefully we can just get out the other side and start racing again.
Coming up soon, the 600 race, of course. That's the class that you're really very competitive with. Practice been going good?
Yeah, we ended up going quickest in qualifying and stuff. So it was a little bit iffy and patchy and stuff yesterday. So hopefully the time should be a bit faster today. And yeah.
The earlier Supersport race had originally been red flagged due to a deer on the track, but once they got going, Joe Ackroyd and James Hind making contact, and then a disastrous moment when the belly pan dropped from race leader Mike Norbury's machine, allowing Lee Johnson to take the victory. They line up on the grid, looking back from Lee Johnson's machine, Dom Herbertson on bike number 11. Mike Norbury hoping his fortune changes for the better this time around. This is how they start. Norbury in pole position, alongside him Lee Johnston and Joe Ackroyd, Dom Herbertson, Jim Hind and Tom Wheaton on row 2, Brad Vickers, Rob Hodson, Richard Charlton, Sam Johnson, Stephen Haddow and Dan Harrison, followed by Harry Jackson, Callum Ward, Russell Brook, Toby Shan, Dan Forbes and Don Gilbert. And this has certainly got the strongest of all the lineups at Oliver's Mount this weekend. Lee Johnston still the man to beat, but he has some very serious competition on the grid this time. Johnston looks like he'll get the whole shot ahead of Norbury. It is indeed Johnston who leads. Looking back from Hodson as the riders exit Mere Hairpin. No misdemeanors this time. Joe Ackroyd and Jim Hind certainly glad to be going in this one. Dom Herbertson around Memorial in 4th position. That's where he was, of course, until Mike Norbury had that belly pan issue in the earlier race on lap 4 when he was leading. That elevated Herbertson up into 3rd. But Lee Johnson setting a cracking pace. Joe Ackroyd in 3rd. And this is the race leader. Oh, Lee Johnston. That's the way to do it into Mountside. Brilliant. Fully committed. Throwing the back end in. Nice and neat through the jumps. Herbertson still holding on to Ackroyd. A little bit more spread out further back. Across the line goes Lee Johnston to lead. From Norbury, from Ackroyd, from Herbertson. Those four breaking away from 5th place, and Lee Johnston doing it again. He's certainly enjoying his time at Oliver's Mount. Well, this time he's not having to follow Mike Norbury, but he's only got himself to think about, really. Okay, of course, there is the challenge of the guys behind him, but Lee Johnston with a big grin under that helmet. Along the back straight, Herbertson still in pursuit of Ackroyd, and they're all in pursuit of this man, Lee Johnston. But still, this battle rages on further back. Jim Hind is in there, so too Sam Johnson at the back of this little group, Rob Hodson. And all the while, Lee Johnston pulling away. Norbury, even without any issues this time, just can't seem to manage that gap, or certainly break that gap down towards this man that we're riding with, Lee Johnston. And again, has a little play going in. Oh, Norbury with a hint, and I think maybe Ackroyd may have just overshot the top of, or certainly went a bit too wide around at Drury's hairpin. That's lost a little bit of ground for him. Further on, Tim Whedon is still in 5th place, but Brad Vickers has thrown away. Jim Hind, Rob Hodson, Callum Ward, Stephen Haddow, Sam Johnson, all in this little group. Drop into Farm Bends, and it does actually really drop. Lee Johnston continues to manage this race out in front on the Ashcourt Racing Yamaha. Dominic Herbertson doesn't want to take any risks, really, in trying to close down that gap to 3rd. Looks like he may have to settle for 4th this time. They're all pretty well spaced out, but it is the fastest race of the weekend. Lee Johnston with the fastest lap, 1 minute 49. So Johnston sees the last lap flag. That time was 1 minute 49.6. Oh, Hodson making a move on Jim Hind at Mountside. So Jim Hind goes back to, it looks like 8th place. Well, it's been a sterling effort from Mike Norbury on the ZX6. But he's just not been able to do anything about Lee Johnston today. Lee Johnston dominating the Supersport class. A 4th place finish, it would seem, this time for Dom Herbertson. Well, Norbury certainly brought that gap down. Lee Johnston has certainly eased off as well. Meanwhile, Jim Hind looking for a move on Hodson. I think he's got him. So Jim Hind up into 7th place, Hodson back in 8th. Lee Johnston takes the checkered flag. It's another victory in the Supersport class. Brad Vickers in 6th behind Tom Whedon. Dominic Herbertson in 4th with Joe Ackroyd 3rd. Mike Norbury 2nd this time. Lee Johnston unbeatable on the 600s.
To get all the wins and qualify on pole, you have to be happy with that. So yeah, whole team bike, everything worked well all weekend, and a big fair play to the organisers, I think, for trying to get it run in difficult conditions and seeing how happy everybody is. You know what I mean? The fans are mad to get back and see any sort of motorsport. You know what I mean? So to get it back on, and it, like I said, bodes well for the Gold Cup. Hopefully we can open the gates a bit more and get a proper big crowd in.
Well, that's it from Scarborough and the Barry Sheen Classic. It's been brilliant racing all weekend. Dean Harrison has been the man, Lee Johnston, and young Jim Hind, he's a name for the future. It's been absolutely superb for me and everyone else around us, and we hope to see you at the Gold Cup.